2 minutes. My clock says 1 minute.
Well, I also wonder,
I do not. Yes, it starts automatically at 6 o'clock.
good evening, thanks for coming in. Bill,
Good
you
evening.
gonna join us? What?
Come on.
We saved you a seat up here.
Right in the front row. Oh, this is-
We can go whenever you're ready. Yep.
okay. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the High Bridge Trail State Park Public Comment Meeting. So this is part 2 of the process. So if you were here before, this is the master plan process part 2. If you were here with us last time, we went over all of the resources that occur and that are on High Bridge Trail State Park. Tonight, our meeting more is about proposed facilities. So we usually get more exciting crowds in the proposed facility meeting. Just because this is the time that we show all of the new ideas that have come up with throughout that process. So here with me tonight, my name, by the way, is Kelly McClary. I'm the Director of Planning and Recreation Resources for Department of Conservation and Recreation. Here with me tonight is Josh Bateman, planner for my section. David Bryan in the back, State Parks planner. We got Daniel Jordan, some of his staff with us. He's the park manager. Tim Schrader, Eastern Field region manager, and also Josh Ellington, Chief Resource Officer for DCR. Dr. Melissa Baker is behind me. She's State Parks Director. And Frank Stovall is also with us tonight, Deputy Director of Operations for the Department of Conservation and Recreation. So we're going to get started tonight. I'm going to turn it over to Josh first. He's going to go over some housekeeping, I think, with us, and then we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Kelly. As Kelly said, my name is Josh Bateman. I'm a environmental program planner with DCR. And tonight we're going to be talking about the proposed facilities, the proposed recommendations for the High Bridge Trail State Park Master Plan. If you have questions on anything that I'm presenting on or one of the other presenters is presenting on, just we ask that you hold on to your question, make a note of it, and ask it at the end of the meeting so we can give it a thorough response. In the aftermath of this meeting, there's going to be a public comment period. At the end of the presentation, there will be a QR code for you to utilize to send your comments to this email address right here, planningresources@dcr.virginia.gov. So you don't have to memorize that. It's not the last time you're going to see that email address. Our agenda tonight, we're going to start with talking about a little bit about the purpose of this meeting and why we're here. Melissa Baker, the Virginia State Parks Director, is going to introduce you to Virginia State Parks, and our Park Manager, Daniel Jordan, is going to provide an overview of current facilities at the park as sort of a preparation for talking about how we're proposing to expand and improve those facilities. I'll talk a little bit about the planning process and some of the results of our public input survey that we put out there. And also I'll talk about the results of the market analysis before handing it off to David Bryan, who will talk about the visitor experience plan. And then he'll hand it back off to me to talk about the master planning goals. And last but certainly not least, the phase development plan, the proposed phase development plan for the park, along with the staffing update. At the very end of the meeting will be a discussion of next steps and the public comment, and give you all an opportunity to make comments, ask questions, get your questions answered. And we're going to stay back after the meeting. So if anybody has a question they don't think about until after the meeting, we'll be here to answer that as well. So the purpose of this meeting, this is the second of the two public meetings that we've held for the Highbridge Trail State Park Master Plan. The first meeting was to get input and to notify the public of the public input survey at the beginning of the master planning process. This meeting is after we've compiled all that input and analyzed all that input and listened to and made a note of all of the things that the public is telling us they want to see at Highbridge Trail State Park and what they like about the park, what they think needs improvement, to follow all the work that we did internally to come up with these recommendations and to present that to you all before the master plan is actually finished being written, so that there's still an opportunity to change that as we go forward based on the feedback that you all give us. So we're going to talk about our proposed mission statement for the park, our purpose statement, interpretive themes, essential visitor experiences, master plan goals and objectives, and the proposed development plan for the park. And then, as I said, give you an opportunity to provide feedback on that. At this time, I'm going to introduce Dr. Melissa Baker, Virginia State Parks Director.
Good evening, everyone. I'll be very brief this evening because I see many familiar faces who I know are familiar with the Virginia State Park System. And I told you a little bit about the park system 6 months ago when we had our first meeting here. But Highbridge Trail is one of 43 state parks in the Virginia State Park System. Our mission in the system is to conserve, I'm going to paraphrase, to conserve our park resources and to provide educational and recreational experiences that allow them to be conserved for future generations and enjoyed for future generations. At Highbridge Trail specifically, and I know that Daniel will probably talk a little bit more. I'm not surprised to see good turnout at the meeting and faces that we recognize because you all are very connected to this park. We're excited to spend the evening with you and show you what has been put into the proposed master plan and to hear from you what you think about it and how you see that vision going forward. So with that, I will turn it back to Joshua.
And I will turn it back to Mr. Daniel Jordan, the park manager, to provide a summary of existing amenities at Highbridge Trail State Park.
Absolutely. Thank you. Again, I'm Daniel Jordan, park manager. So it is a pleasure to be here with you all this evening, and it's been a joy to be at Highbridge for the last 10 years. So we'll go over a couple things before we get into where we want to go. And so it's good to have a baseline of where the park is now, and you can kind of see, it'll give you an idea of some of our thoughts and what we're looking at, but also what we're doing. Most of you know, Highbridge Trail is 32.2 miles of old railroad bed that runs from almost Burkeville to Pamplin. And so along the way, the gem of the park is Highbridge. And so we have the most of our traffic from Highbridge to the town of Farmville and back. But also along the way, we do have 10 parking lots. We have 7 vault toilets. We do have a restroom at the new visitor center at Highbridge Station, which was formerly called Camp Paradise. We did change the name from Camp Paradise for that area to Highbridge Station to avoid some confusion because there's not camping there. And Highbridge Station would really show that it's a railroad station and a visitor center, a ranger station. But then there's 10 parking lots across the entirety of the park, plus there's municipal lots here in Farmville. We do have the pleasure of running through an urban, I call it the urban interface of downtown Farmville, and so there's a lot of opportunities with the town to be able to get onto the trail. And then we also, additionally, we have the 32 as mentioned, but we also have over 10 miles of trails that are side trails off of the main trail at Camp Paradise, Highbridge Station area, and then also at Rochelle. And that's a mix of walking and bike trails. Those are not equestrian trails. But then the hope of this evening is, so as we build out the trail, we've been able to open public facilities on the trail, and that's to better assist in the public coming out, but also it gives people access to us. And so we're excited about having flush bathrooms. We're excited about having exhibits. and we're excited about the administrative offices there. But then the other side of it is Highbridge Trail is 32 miles, and so Highbridge is the gym, but what is it about Moran and Rice and Elam and Tuggle and Prospect and Pamplin that has a draw? And so we're excited about showing what the string of pearls of this area can be. And so, so with that, I'll give it back to Josh.
So why do we master plan? Much like the localities that you live in undergo comprehensive planning every so often to update the plan for the locality, we are mandated by and required by state law to update the state park master plans at least once every 10 years, and then following significant acquisition of property for a new park to undertake a master planning process for that as well and plan the park. So it really is a guide for the long-term development, utilization, and management of the park's natural, cultural, and historic resources. So it acts in many ways like a town comprehensive plan or a county comprehensive plan. It is a plan for the future physical development of the park. And it is developed in stages with public input, both at the beginning of the process and here this evening towards the end of the process. The purpose of the plan is to keep the park plan up to date based on changes to existing conditions. Those sometimes don't change quite so rapidly in a place like Prince Edward County and Farmville and these counties here on Virginia's south side. But one thing that does evolve over time are outdoor recreation trends. So the way people recreate in parks changes over time. I think 10 years ago, the number of e-bikes that we see, for instance, on the trail was probably a lot less numerous and less prevalent than they are today. That's because Virginians, much like Americans, are changing the way they interact with the outdoors. There's a lot more diversification of activities that people are pursuing, and also these new technologies like e-bikes that are coming into the fray. So we want to keep the state park policies for the future consistent with those trends. And to establish the plans framework by crafting the state park's mission statement. So we start from the global, right? We start with, why does this park exist? What is its purpose within the larger state park system? What is special or unique about Highbridge Trail State Park? We start with that. We identify audiences and user groups, and we identify interpretive themes and sub-themes that are really an identification of the things that make the park unique, the stories that we want to tell about the history of the Southside Railroad and the Southside region. We use that to craft a set of planning goals, which are sort of aspirational principles that guide all of the planning work and all of the recommendations for the different areas of the park that you're going to hear about tonight. And we identify we divide the park, even a linear park like this, into experience areas based on the types of experiences that we want to provide to users within those within each part of the park. And then we identify, okay, what do people really need? What do visitors need within those experience areas? And then we prioritize that by high, medium, and low priority. High priority being phase 1, medium priority being phase 2, and low priority being phase 3. And then we develop that phase development plan where we actually get to put those needs and assign them to more specific locations than just an area or a part of the park. And we'll be talking some more about that tonight so that you can see what our plan is for specific trailhead entrances, as well as Highbridge Station, Pamplin, each part of the park. Because as Daniel said, this park is kind of different than your standard state park. It really is it's a 32-mile corridor that almost works like a string of jewels or something. Each trailhead is like its own smaller park, and it's connected by this greenway that is Highbridge Trail. So it's definitely spaced out and creates some unique characteristics of this phase development plan, and also creates the need for more maps. So that, unfortunately, I didn't bring enough easels, but we certainly have enough maps. And we're also going to talk about park staffing and the need to ramp up park staffing during each phase of development once these new facilities and these new opportunities come online. So the planning process, it just simply put, where we are in the process currently is the the next to last step. We've developed a proposed phase development plan, and we're now moving into the public comment period where we give you all an opportunity to react to that. So how did we get there? How did we identify the park's needs? We listened to you all is the simplest way to explain that. So the Highbridge Trail State Park Master Plan utilized the Your Comments Count Survey, which is the statewide Virginia State Parks Customer Satisfaction Survey. We utilized the data for 2024 and 2025, well, through the third quarter of 2025 because the fourth quarter hasn't happened yet. We also looked at statewide trends in the Virginia Outdoor Survey in 2022 that informed the Virginia Outdoors Plan, which was adopted by the state in 2024. And also Dr. Vince Magnini with Longwood University and his organization did a market analysis for the park this year that also is one of the inputs that we utilize for this master plan. So a lot of public input feeds into these recommendations that you're going to hear about tonight. So starting with the broadest geography and focusing on down. So beginning with the Virginia Outdoor Survey data. So this indicates statewide trends for outdoor recreation. As you'll see in a moment, the service area for this park, the primary service area, the 1 hour drive time, is really a subset of Virginia. But the secondary service area is a 3 hour drive time. It encompasses much more of Virginia, almost the entire state, in addition to parts of North Carolina, Maryland. So you'll see that tonight. So the Virginia Outdoor Survey is this statewide survey, but it is relevant in the most basic sense to planning any individual state park in Virginia. So the three big questions that we looked at from the Virginia Outdoor Survey were: why are people using trails? Which activities are most pursued and needed? And which amenities are survey respondents saying are most desired? So the primary reason in Virginia for people using trails like Highbridge Trail State Park is pleasure, relaxation, overwhelmingly, enjoyment of scenery in the natural environment, and health and physical training. And I think in many ways what you'll see with Highbridge Trail State Park specifically mirrors those statewide trends in some ways. In some ways it's a little different. As far as trail-based activities that received a response rate of greater than or equal to 10%, we looked at current participation rates in Virginia for that activity versus what those same respondents said was most needed. In some cases, the participation rate was equaled or maybe slightly exceeded the need expressed, and we interpret that to mean, for the most part, people are finding opportunities at local parks, state parks, in their neighborhoods, in their communities, within a reasonable drive time. They're finding facilities and opportunities to do these activities, to pursue these activities. So they're the most basic activities like walking for pleasure, visiting parks, nature-based trails, visiting natural and historic areas, hiking, backpacking, viewing scenery, and jogging and running. But the ones where we identified a place where need exceeds participation rates, we see that as a gap that we could fill, that providing facilities for that thing, for that activity, helps to fulfill potentially an unmet need. Those activities in the Virginia Outdoor Survey were picnicking, bike trails, walking and running, challenge-based events, mountain biking, and horseback riding. Those are the activities that are relevant and applicable to a park like Highbridge Trail State Park. And as far as amenities, public restrooms was cited most frequently, trailhead parking, additional parking, drinking water, especially along the Highbridge Trail. That's obviously very relevant. And information kiosks were the top 4 trail amenities that Virginians said that they needed when visiting trails. Now, when we look at Highbridge Trail State Park and its users specifically, what we did is we pulled the Your Comments Count data for 2024 and through the end of September in 2025. And we looked at, first of all, the pie chart that you see there lists the ages of respondents. I will say this, the survey responses do tend to go a little bit with more like older visitors. So more than half of our respondents were over the age of 50, but that's not that unique to Highbridge Trail. We see that with a lot of our state parks. Trying to get someone under 30 years old to fill out a survey is not particularly easy to do. So give you all a pat on the back for filling out the survey if you did so. We really appreciate it because that's how we get the information that we get. So as far as this park was concerned, believe it or not, the number one activity that people are pursuing when they come to this park is hiking or walking. It's by far the most popular activity. 69.7% of respondents indicated that they hiked or walked the High Bridge Trail or some portion of it. Bicycling was, even though we tend to think of like shared use trails and rail trails as primarily bike trails, it was a distant second. Other was actually the third, and that was split between walking and running, so you can almost add that to hiking. And ranger talks and tours were the other most significant activity in the other category. Educational programs 9.1% and picnicking at 8%. As far as customer satisfaction with day use facilities, the visitor center actually overtook in the third quarter trails as the facility with which visitors are most satisfied. So throughout 2024 and 2025, well, throughout 2024, because there was no visitor center open to the public until April of 2025, trails were rated higher, but the visitor center is apparently really liked and really used, and people really seem to enjoy it. They rated it the facility with which they were most satisfied. The third after trails is, and trails is not exclusive to the High Bridge Trail, that's the side trails too. Number three was restrooms. Number 4 was the picnic area. And 5 was disability access, so the accessibility of the trail. As far as the distance from the park, the majority of respondents, 62%, lived more than 50 miles from the park. So they're traveling across Virginia, they're going to the beach, they're going wherever they're going, and they're stopping at High Bridge Trail State Park because it is a day use park currently. And my guess is a lot of them are coming to what used to be called Camp Paradise is now called High Bridge Station, and they're using that opportunity to walk down and take in the views from the bridge. But I wouldn't say the overwhelming majority, but the majority of respondents lived farther away, greater than 50 miles. You'll find out more about that, where the growth is occurring in the primary market area for the park. Explains that, I think, to a pretty good degree. But the best aspect of the park visit by far was the High Bridge, the views from it, but also appreciation of the High Bridge for its history and for the engineering marvel that it represents. Trails were second, including the side trails, not just the main rail to trail. Views and scenery from the bridge were identified separately, were the third most important aspect. And then, believe it or not, staff, a lot of staff, individual staff persons as well as just staff in general really show out in the survey results. You can see that the park users really appreciate the park staff. In terms of the top 3 words to describe what they value or connect to with respect to this park, trails, the value of trails, not just for the natural beauty along the trail or the history along the trail, but just folks jogging, running, going for a walk, exercising. That was what people really valued. Number 2 was history and beauty. There was actually a tie between the history along the trail and the natural beauty of the surroundings, the rural pastoral landscape that people view from the bridge and the trail. And then access and convenience were views and scenery, and then access and convenience was 4th. And in terms of one thing to add to this park that would improve the park, all types of trails, people want more trails. That was across all activities. That includes hiking trails, mountain biking trails. Not so much with the equestrian trails because we don't get a lot of equestrian usage of the main rail to trail. And currently equestrians are not permitted on the side trails as far as I know. So, but mostly for hiking and biking, people want more of a good thing. In terms of parking, that was the second most desired thing to add to this park. Camping was 3rd, and then drinking water and restrooms. And I say these are the things to add to this park, but most people actually responded that what they would add to this park is nothing. They like it just like it is, and we get that in actually a lot of these state park survey responses. Usually if it's not the number 1 response, it's one of the top 3 responses is leave it the way it is. I like it like it is. You don't need to add nothing. But unfortunately, as master planners, we're tasked with thinking about what can improve the park and improve the park experience. So we like to add something as opposed to nothing. In terms of the market analysis, this is kind of high level, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. But the main thing to understand here is the population within the primary and the secondary service areas. The primary service area is what you see in red there. That's the 1 hour drive time. The green is the secondary service area, is the 3 hour drive time. And the population of both is increasing at a pretty steady rate. Not too surprising, the primary service area includes the sort of western Richmond suburbs that are growing very rapidly. Chesterfield includes some of Henrico and some of those rapidly growing counties outside of Richmond, in addition to Richmond itself. Prince Edward County, probably outside of that, is one of the fastest growing of the rural counties that are in the primary service area. And then by the time you get to the secondary service area, you see the net change. The population increase is about 1% higher. That's because you're including the DC suburbs all the way out to Charlotte, all the way up to Baltimore and beyond. So that's why the net population growth is higher in the secondary service area. But the cohort that is of greatest concern for the parks market area is the 65 and older age group. So it's growing and projected to continue to increase in both the primary and secondary service area, which means that we have to, as parks, both as park staff, as DCR staff, and as master planners, think about how we accommodate that increasing usage by folks in the 65 and older category. There's a lot in the market analysis. It's probably about, 50 pages or something like that. And I've already talked about the first two bullets, so I'm not going to go too much into this. But the tourist spending on lodging and restaurants in Prince Edward County is higher than the median in Virginia. So apparently folks around here like to go out to eat. Not surprising, you have some great restaurants here in Farmville, so I'm not surprised by that at all. The popularity of the activities walking, horseback riding, bird watching, fishing, overnight camping, and cooking out in the primary service area exceeds national averages. Another takeaway is that the popularity of jogging, running, hiking, backpacking, and mountain biking in the secondary service area exceed national averages. And in response to rising temperatures, which is one of the main challenges that the park faces, because we're seeing, more and more hot days during the summer, hotter days when they do occur. So one of the recommendations of the market analysis is install additional shade, including shaded picnic areas and definitely water bottle refill stations placed for people to get hydrated when they're out on the trail. And even to step off the trail and get into an air-conditioned or cooler environment. Certainly the visitor center has helped to achieve that. Visitors' ratings of trails was higher in this park than the system-wide average. Not surprising, it's a rail trail. And staff availability and security were rated lower than system-wide averages. That's because as a long linear trail, it's not always possible to have eyes on the ground along the entire length of the trail. The top 3 improvement needs in the market analysis were more potable water stations, a visitor center, of course that's been satisfied as of April of this year, and additional permanent restrooms. And another thing I did want to mention, so the most of the population growth that we see in the primary service area, like I said, is those Richmond suburban localities. What that means is we're going to see more and more visitors driving the hour and 15 minutes or hour, whatever it is, from Chesterfield, from those suburbs, to come out to Prince Edward County to bike or run or walk on the High Bridge Trail. So that's going to be something that we have to identify and resolve in this master plan. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to David Bryan to talk a little bit about the high-level visitor experience themes that we explored.
Good evening, everyone. My name is David Bryan, State Parks Planner. Good to see you all out tonight. Thanks for coming. So we're going to talk a little bit about visitor experience, and Josh has really set the foundation well. So as part of the planning process, we want to hear all from you, the visitors that are coming to the park. I know some of you are Friends members, some of you aren't. But we want to know, why are our visitors coming to the park? What are they there for? What are the primary activities they're interested in? And so using things like the market study and the Your Comments Count survey and the Virginia Outdoors survey, we are able to bring all that information together to really understand, what the visitor needs. And so as we'll be presenting some of that tonight, and hopefully we got it right, but if not, again, please tell us. So master planning looks at visitor experience. One of the first things we'll do is we dig into who is our audiences, who is showing up at the park, what groups are there. And as Josh mentioned, that we have a multi-use trail, but we definitely see primarily, bikers and hikers there walking at the trail. We don't see a lot of equestrian use, even though it is allowable on the trail. So going into the master planning process, we want to understand again that the majority of folks coming out have those two needs in mind. We'll also go over our interpretive themes for the park, and I'll describe what that means in a second, to develop a park purpose statement. Why does Highbridge exist and as a park, and we differentiate that from our other parks. What makes it special? And we'll just go ahead and move on to that next one. So, audiences and user groups. So, we worked, and I say we, the planners and the park staff, and using all of the data collected from you all, our visitors, came together, and we've grouped our visitors into these several groups. So one is our active recreators. We have people coming to the go bike the trail. That could be a portion of the trail. Probably 90% plus of our visitors primarily use between Farmville and Highbridge Station. But we do have folks that like to come in and start at Pamplin and go all the way to Burkeville. So a lot more intense of a day. Hikers, folks that want to go hike down below the trail. Racers, there's a lot of great races here, like the Freight Train, the 5K, other events throughout the year that the park hosts. And then our trail runners as well, like Bryce Wilk coming in here. So our cultural special interest groups are, those are folks that are coming in primarily for the interest in history. So obviously the Highbridge Trail State Park is right down the road from Sailors Creek. These two parks are intricately connected due to the events that happened, many, many moons ago in 1865. But we have a lot of folks that will visit Sailors Creek and then come over to Highbridge Trail that are interested in the history there, whether it be Civil War history or transportation history. And I think at our first public meeting, we talked extensively about that. School groups. So whether those be public school groups or homeschool groups, we have many that come and use the trail with regularity. And so again, education users are a significant user group here. Low impact recreation users, these are our casual folks that come in. A lot of folks are, I'm going to say, are brown sign chasers, where they see the sign for Highbridge Station and they're like, well, I need to pull in there and see what I can see. Folks come in just to see the bridge, visit maybe now at the visitor center, hopefully, and then they go on their merry way. Other folks are, dog walkers from the up and down the trail, folks that live, neighbors that are close, that take advantage of it for maybe relatively short periods compared to our active recreators. And then finally, this is also a great place for natural resources. And so particularly, we know that the park emphasizes the Fireflies as the premier festival in the summer, but also if the night skies, if through various programs, going out on the bridge and going out there on a dark night and seeing the beauty all around you. We have a lot of great state parks where you can get good views and good wildlife watching, but there's very few that have that 360 amphitheater viewing like we have at the trail. And then, of course, our volunteers. We don't want to forget about our volunteers. It's a very special group, an important group that helps the park run. Josh. All right, so essential experiences. So this is where an essential experience, to sum it up, if someone that was not familiar with the park showed up at Highbridge Station, goes into the office and sees Jody here, our office manager, and says, hey, I've never been here before, I've only got a couple hours, what do I do? What is the essential experience that I need to have? At Highbridge Trail, it's not a hard answer. If you only have an hour or so, please go down and see the bridge is the first thing. Definitely the bridge experience is number one, but also we have many other opportunities up and down the trail depending on where that person goes. So they might be in Farmville, they might get onto the trail from there, might to experience some of the various shopping and restaurant amenities around there. There's the Civil War history, and we know that the interpreters of the park usually do a really great job interpreting that story. And then the exhibits that are there at Highbridge Station, which in time are also going to be upgraded, so we're looking forward to that over the next year or two. If you have more time, we want folks to get out and actively recreate. So the recommendation is going to be, get on a bike, rent a bike in Farmville if you don't have one yourself. Get out there, go to a nighttime ranger-led program like the Firefly Festival, for example. And then for folks that have multiple days, really the big experience is going from one end to the other. And a lot of folks, because we have many state parks here in this region, we encourage people to stay down the road at Twin Lake State Park or Bear Creek Lake State Park, take advantage of those overnight amenities, and then come enjoy the trail. All right, so visitor experience themes. So during our planning process, we really wanted to dig into how do we tell the story of the trail and of the park to our visitors, and really highlight why this park is special. Again, all of our parks are special, but for different reasons. And these visitor experience themes are what the park staff will use for anything from guiding events to interpretive programming to signage, also exhibit design, and some of that's going on again right now for the future exhibits at the station. So I'm just going to go through these quickly. I think we got 4 or 5, but our first one here is across miles and centuries, the former Southside Railroad connects communities, creates culture, and encourages commerce across the central Piedmont of Virginia. And so we have this overarching theme, but under this theme, we have our sub-themes, things that we're going to focus on in our programs, and that's the railroad heritage. The importance of the former railroad to commerce, agriculture, and so forth in the central Piedmont. All right, our second theme, this is really focused on the bridge itself. So towering above the Appomattox River, the historic High Bridge features accessible, ever-changing views of fireflies, foliage, and a star field stretching from horizon to horizon. So obviously, we wanted to focus on that important historic and cultural resource that is the High Bridge, but also all of those natural resources that we can see and immerse ourselves in from that vantage point. Okay. This is our Civil War-related theme. In the waning days of the American Civil War, successive attempts by the Union and Confederate forces to destroy the High Bridge to prevent the other side from crossing both failed, leading the armies to forge ahead to Appomattox in the war's final act, the envelopment and surrender of Lee's army on April 9th, 1865. So this bridge, of course, has a very important part in history. We talked about that at our first public meeting, but we definitely want to make sure we're interpreting that event. It's part in the Appomattox campaign. Camp Paradise, which a lot of the Southern troops were at throughout the 4 or 5 years of the war, and then suddenly the war came to them, and then the 2-day Battle of High Bridge. All right, our next theme. This is more about our recreational activities and aspects of the park. Today, High Bridge Trail State Park, offers convenient access to healthy recreational activities where visitors can immerse themselves in a progression of Piedmont ecosystems, landscapes, stunning scenery, and rich history from east to west and treetop to river's edge. And then finally, on our themes, this is more the engineering and transportation. Visitors to High Bridge Trail State Park traverse a corridor once ruled by trains, where historic bridges, telegraph poles, and cultural remnants bring to life the monumental shifts in American engineering, transportation, and telecommunications that reshaped the nation between the 19th and 20th centuries. So most of our parks, that when we work on these interpretive themes, I would say the majority of them, we come down to 3 or 4 themes. Here it was just too difficult to get that. There's so many stories that this trail tells. Again, in history, in natural and cultural resources, and its importance for commerce, telecommunications, all across the board. So hopefully we've highlighted that, and that all gets brought together in our purpose statement. So bringing all that interpretive work together, this is the purpose statement of the park, why we exist. Featuring the historic High Bridge as its centerpiece, High Bridge Trail State Park provides a premier rail-to-trail experience, showcasing the journey of goods, people, and armies through and across the rural communities lying at the heart of Virginia. And with that, I'll turn it back to Josh.
Thank you, David. So did everybody get all that? There will not be a quiz on this later, but all of that visitor experience, that great interpretive information, that great purpose statement, those themes really inspired everything that you're going to hear next. In many ways, as we were going through the process of planning the park, we had to think about the way the South Side Railroad connected these communities. It was a lifeline to these communities. It connected these communities historically in the 19th and 20th centuries to each other and to the outside world. And in many ways, what we're trying to do with High Bridge Trail State Park today is connect these communities again, but with a modern recreational trail that people both inside the community and folks visiting from outside can visit and explore and use and recreate. And in many ways, planning this park, this trail, was not just a function of planning a state park. It was really a function of planning improvements in each one of these communities, like Pamplin and Prospect and Rice and Farmville. So the trail is very much a central part of the identity of these communities. It's a central part of how these communities want to engage with people that both live there or the people coming to visit. And so we had to keep that in mind as we were coming up with these and formulating these sort of goals, which are really statements of principle that we want to aspire to and that we want to motivate everything that we're about to recommend in this plan. So as we go through both, as I read these goals and talk about the proposed improvements that you're going to see on the maps here, think about the degree to which the recommendations for improvements to the park are based in these goals and which goals that they implement, facilitate, accomplish. So the first goal deals with resource protection. It's pretty boilerplate, but it really is necessary to state it. Protect the rich natural, historic, and scenery, natural, historic, and scenery of the trail corridor and adjacent lands traversed by the former Southside Railroad and current High Bridge Trail State Park for the education and enjoyment of contemporary visitors. The second goal deals with recreational opportunities, provide convenient access to the park for people pursuing trail-based recreation, exercise, and related activities, whether that's for personal health and fitness or regardless of what their interest may be or what activity they're coming to the park to pursue. In terms of interpretive programs, it's such an important way in which the park staff engages with the visitor. As I indicated earlier, many respondents to the survey said that they really appreciated the park staff. So we want to continue to enhance appreciation and understanding of the shared economic, transportation, and social history of the people and communities that are connected by the trail corridor in the same way as those people were historically connected by the Southside Railroad. And we want to do that through our programming, events, and exhibits. In terms of partnerships, many of these are things that the state park currently does and aspires to continue to do. And that's create and maintain effective partnerships with local businesses, organizations, and governments so that High Bridge becomes this premier regional and statewide rail-to-trail destination. And if it is today, we want to make it even more so in the future. In terms of public engagement, we're looking to forge collaborative and positive working relationships with local landowners and the public so that we can foster a shared sense of commitment, of dedication to stewardship and protection of the lands within the park and those that adjoin the trail corridor. In terms of visitor satisfaction, optimize and expand visitor facilities and services to facilitate a safe and satisfying recreational trail experience. This is about providing convenient amenities like restrooms and places to fill up your water bottle, places to come in out of the sun and rest and relax off the trail. That's what Goal 6 is all about. And the seventh goal deals with staffing, funding, and equipment, provide sufficient staffing and facilities to effectively carry out these other goals as well as the park's mission. So that people have positive interactions, we create a memorable experience, and if they are coming from Chesterfield or Richmond or even further out, their memory of High Bridge Trail is a positive one that they take home with them back to the communities that they're from and tell their neighbors about. So when I put these maps on this slide, I didn't realize just how small these TVs are. So I printed out these larger maps, and then I put them over on this side of the room, and then I realized at first everybody was sitting on this side of the room. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take each map and bring it up to the front of the room, and hopefully you can see this a little. That's perfect right there for you. I'm going to make it difficult for you to see it. I'm going to pull it up right to the middle so everybody can see it. And I'm going to start on the eastern end of the trail near Burkeville and work my way west. And I'm going to give you sort of a high-level summary of each proposed development and I think I got it. So the very first thing there with Burkeville, it was such an important priority that not only is it a phase 1 improvement, thank you, David, but he's a human easel. Not only is it a priority phase development, but it's actually one of the objectives of the master plan. It's to finally complete the trail to Burkeville. And we foresee that kind of happening much the same way as the connection to Pamplin happened, with construction of the trail surface and bridges and facilities along the former South Side Railroad right-of-way to Burkeville, acquisition of property for a proper trailhead parking area, installation of conveniences like bathrooms, probably porta-johns initially, but eventually restroom facilities. So that is, if there's one project that is #1 priority in this park master plan, it is finishing the High Bridge Trail along the entire right-of-way of the South Side, of the former South Side Railroad. Working our way to the west, everybody knows where the Piney Grove tract is, I believe. So it's just in this area here in Moran. I probably didn't pronounce that right. But our proposal is for additional hiking and biking trails, much like you have at the Rochelle tract on the Piney Grove tract, so we can finally open that up to public access. And we're also looking to put a parking area there so that so we can establish the Piney Grove tract as another trailhead entrance, another trailhead parking area with restrooms and the like, so that people can hike the trails there that we plan to build. So coming over to Rice, so this is the zoomed in of the view of the Rice trailhead. We're looking to enlarge and pave that parking area by demolishing the old steel building there. It's really kind of takes up a lot of that space. There's really not enough room for people to kind of back out. So by demolishing that building, that allows us to expand that parking area. You're going to see this as a theme as we go through these trailhead areas. We don't love vault toilets. We realize a lot of people don't love the vault toilets. Wherever we can, we're looking to expand vault toilets and upgrade them where it makes sense to proper restrooms with flush toilets and running water. So we're proposing that here at the Rice trailhead. Replace the split rail fencing with something more context appropriate and something that's more durable, frankly. And also demolish the green building in phase 1. The first thing would be demolish the green building. All of the other improvements that I discussed are phase 2 improvements, so medium priority improvements. Sure. Yeah. So this one's a busy one, especially the one on the right, because it's High Bridge Station, formerly known as Camp Paradise. So the way I'm going to go through this is start with the centerpiece of this state park, which is the High Bridge Trail. So this plan calls for in phase 1 making certain enhancements to the High Bridge, and those enhancements would be primarily to the decking and to the railings. So the last time the decking was replaced, I was told it was about $1 million to replace it, and the wood decking really takes a beating in summer heat. Boards are needing to be replaced constantly, so one of the high priority improvements is to replace the wood decking with a more durable, sustainable, long-term alternative. Might cost a little bit more initially, but it'll hopefully give a better return on investment by lasting more than the wood decking does. In addition, the wood railings, there's alternative materials that can be used for the railings, like steel or some type of aluminum or metal. So without specifying what that material will necessarily be, because that's going to be a product of how much material costs have gone up, and we all know what that looks like now in the current environment that we're in, but replacing the railings also with a more durable material so that it lasts longer, we get a better bang for our buck, so to speak. We're not proposing a height change. We are, however, proposing, so the mesh, the chain linking, those openings, so it's very tight right now. It's even difficult for children it's even difficult for adults to get a camera phone. When people want to take photos at it, it's hard to even get your camera phone there. So one of the proposals we're talking about is increasing the opening size, the mesh size. Not so that it's unsafe, but so that folks can get a better view when they're just along any part of the trail. Another thing that we're talking about doing in phase one, that we're proposing doing, is installing observation ports, probably made of glass, both in the two observation areas at the bridge, either bridge end. You wouldn't have to necessarily walk on it. You could walk around it, but if you were more adventurous and aren't terribly afraid of heights, you could walk over this thing and see the bridge, superstructure, as well 125 feet down the river. Pretty cool experience. In addition, so each observation area has 3 rails, 3 directions, installing in the railings glass observation at each side so that children and folks that aren't, you know, the taller folks that have to hear over, they're not doing as much of that. So they would be able to be at the deck level and still be able to see out from the bridge itself. So that's the proposal for the bridge itself in phase one. In phase two, we're looking to add pedestrian lighting, low-level access lighting that illuminates the decking of the bridge for night activities. It's not something that would cause glare, but directional lighting that would just illuminate only the deck, the bridge deck itself. It just makes a safer environment when there's night activities like the dark sky stuff and the Firefly Festival, so that folks nobody trips and doesn't have a road bridge.
So you turn it off during the actual viewing of the night sky. So yeah.
The good things about lighting is you flip a switch, it goes on. You flip a switch, it goes on. So that's what we're looking to do there. In addition to pedestrian lighting from the current visitor center down the trail, so that would be relatively short freestanding lighting to illuminate the trail, so our night visitors that are attending these activities, attending these events, can see where they're going and walk down the bridge without being flashed in. And again, that would be all full cutoff, directional, that only illuminates the surface and doesn't cause glare or light to spill over onto adjacent areas where we don't want it. So in addition to that, as far as hybrid station in the parking area, we're looking to add a picnic area and a picnic shelter in the equestrian, where the equestrian lot is now. So the equestrian lot basically gets like no usage. It's just that grassed over gravel area. So we think that would make a really good picnic area beside the hybrid trail. So we're looking to install a picnic area there and a picnic shelter and turn that into a paved parking lot. So it would be both overflow parking for the visitor center, because we're seeing a lot of usage of the visitor center since it got built. You know, you build a facility, folks start coming to that facility, and that's kind of, we're sort of a victim of our own success there, where parking can be kind of tight. So we're looking to do some overflow parking there, as well as parking for the picnic area and picnic shelter, rental picnic shelter we're installing in that area. Also looking to do a picnic shelter in phase one in the existing picnic area that's enclosed within the loop. So that would be the phase one. Would be first priority would be to put a picnic shelter there, and then in phase two, the medium priority would be to put a picnic shelter and a picnic area beside the trail itself, just a little bit to the south. We're also looking, if we can, to expand parking once we put a picnic shelter there. Once that's leased out, and that tends to attract larger groups, so we'll probably need some more parking. But we have some challenges with grade and topography, so it may be that all we can do is add parking down here, folks would have to walk. But if we can provide parking in the adjacent to the existing, where parking is now, that would be our priority. So we're looking to replace in phase two the existing vault toilet. We're not, no. As long as there's a distance there that it has to be within. So as long as you're within a certain distance, and I can't think what that is on top of my head, but that was the proposal, was to make it close enough to the existing restrooms where you could use the restrooms at the visitor center. But we are looking to replace that vault toilet that's been there since it first opened. But the reason why it's not phase one, the reason why it's phase two is because it was constructed with bond money, and we can't tear it down right away. So we gotta wait until phase two to tear it down, replace it with a proper conversation. But we find that the bathrooms that are there now with the visitor center are already at capacity, and we actually need more bathroom space already. So, also we're seeing, as I said, we're seeing more usage with that location easiest, quickest way to access the high bridge itself. And on top of that, the visitor center is, as I noted, very popular. People love it. It looks like a train station. It's really cool. The exhibits are about to get a pretty big upgrade, we think. So we're going to see more and more use. We expect the popularity of this location, of this trailhead, to continue to increase. And that's why we're proposing a contact station eventually where the current pay station is in phase 2. We're looking to expand trails in phase 2 as well, mostly on the east side of the trail and on the east side of the bridge. And then we're also looking to expand trails in phase 2 on the other side of the river, on the western end of the bridge, so you can go and hike down underneath that side, much like you can do on the east side currently. And let's see if I missed anything. So phase 1 improvements, I almost forgot. How could I possibly forget? So there's a need for more storage. So the building is not as big as the need for more storage. So the idea here, in keeping with the railroad theme, is to do some type of storage building that looks like a freight depot or a freight rail depot. So it's compatible with the context of the railroad and the architecture and that sort of thing. And also looking to do 1 or more train cars at High Bridge Station. So recreate a small section of track and do mid-train train cars. So a boxcar, we'll be looking at maybe doing a passenger rail car, some type of dining car, something like that, so that we can provide interpretive programming and educational activities for school groups and just casual visitors to teach them more about what was it like to ride on a rail car on the South Side Railroad back in the early 20th century. Well, you'll at least get an opportunity to see what that rail car actually looks like, and maybe even to go inside.
My father went across my bridge going to Norfolk too. 20 years later, he made sure that he came down and walked down to that bridge because he said we went 2 miles an hour and it just took forever and you couldn't see where you were. It was just amazing. So I've always wondered how many troops went across that bridge during World War II. I bet you it was millions.
That's a great question. That's a great story. Yeah, we'll talk some more. I'll find out a little bit more about that. I don't think I'm missing anything. With phase 3, so we couldn't prioritize it, but we thought it would be a really cool thing to install an observation deck on the west side of the trail, on the east end of the bridge. There's a bluff overlooking here, a steep bluff, provides like a side trail to it or a walking platform, and then having an observation platform. Because that's the only view of the bridge that you don't really get right now. You get the view at either end looking straight down the bridge. You get the awesome panoramic view from the top of the bridge, and you get a wonderful view of the foundations and the towers from down below. But unlike the New River Gorge Bridge, where you can kind of get out to that side viewing area and kind of see the entirety of the bridge laid out, we don't really have that right now. So even though we couldn't prioritize it as high or medium priority, we do want to evaluate the potential for an observation deck in phase 2 by doing a feasibility study in anticipation of potentially doing an observation deck in phase 3. And we're also looking at floodlighting for nighttime type events where folks could be standing at that observation deck, look at the bridge, somebody flips a switch, and it illuminates the side of the bridge from down below. We think that'd be a really awesome thing.
So we do have a view of that you're talking about from our house. And in the fall, we get out the door. And we have to show the pictures, but the structure on the bridge just flows to 77.
You're on the other side?
And we're on that side.
You're on this side?
Sunset. At sunset, it illuminates the bridge, but nothing
The
around
metal
it.
part. Yeah.
That's
Nothing
cool.
around it. It just flows red.
Take some pictures.
We have.
We have.
You sit on that? I'll give you my card. Give me my card. So that's High Bridge Station and the High Bridge itself. If there's any questions on that, we'll come to it at the end of the meeting. But if you hold your question to that, but I realize it's quite a lot that we're proposing there, and these are some pretty cool ideas. I think you'll agree, and we're really excited about it, but it's all to provide that visitor experience and enhance that visitor experience. So that, you know, children get the same experience looking down or looking out from the bridge that, you know, 6 foot tall adults get. I'm not quite 6 foot tall, so I have to tippy toe it too to see over the bridge. So another important trailhead is River Road. So what we're proposing at River Road is all in phase 2. It's all medium priority, but we're mainly looking to move the parking lot to the other side of the street. Next to the substation like that, it really isn't the experience and the aesthetics that we want to convey for that trailhead. I remember before camps, I'm sure you all do too, before Camp Paradise got built, that was the closest way to access the bridge. It was a mile walk, and so it was more used then than I think it is now, but it's still heavily used as a way to access that end of the bridge. So we're looking to move the parking lot over to that side, add a picnic. You know,
One extra thing right there, it's also a big safety issue that we're trying to address in the long term. So we're having everyone, especially families, coming in on the east side of the road, being on the same side as the bridge. Hopefully we're trying to have a more positive experience for families because the cars do fly through that spot.
It is a safety issue, people crossing River Road. Yeah, it absolutely is, which I think is 45 or maybe faster. Yeah. So we're looking to relocate the parking area to that side, add a picnicking area, relocate the picnicking area, install a picnic shelter, an accessible playground for folks with disabilities, for children with disabilities, and demolish the old vault toilet and put a proper restroom in with septic on that side of River Road. So that's the proposal for River Road. I'll move this thing. Yep. Go back. There you go. So let's go to Farmville. So in phase 1, we're looking to also replace the wood decking on the 3 Farmville bridges. That's the River Road Bridge, the Mill Street Bridge, and the Buffalo Creek Bridge. Also replace the wood decking with a more sustainable and durable alternative. We're looking to replace the railings on the Buffalo Creek Bridge in this location with a durable alternative in phase 2. Also in phase 1, I should go back, I'm jumping around a little bit, eliminate the 3rd Street parking area down on the western end of town. It's poor visibility, it's not lit. People go into the parking lot at night and engage in potentially various activities. It's a bit of an issue, so we don't, I mean, I've almost never seen a car there using the trail, so what's that? Use all the we just don't really need a parking area there. And the other parking lot that doesn't make a lot of sense is the East Osborne. It might make sense for community access, but there's really no parking in that lot. Like you can't even park perpendicularly in that lot. So we're looking to eliminate that in phase 2. And finally in phase 3, stub out connections to town parks. So if the town, and if the town of Farmville decides to move faster than that on one or more of these connections to these town parks, we could theoretically revisit that and move it up in priority. But right now it's a phase 3 improvement to at least stub out trail connections so that the town could potentially connect to Hybrid Trail State Park in these locations where these parks are located. That's the Farmville improvements. Continuing to move west in Prospect, we're looking to, in phase 1, add a western maintenance area. So we own this lot where the Pamplin House is. It's actually a Ranger residence. We're looking to add a western maintenance area because there needs to be some type of maintenance place for storage of equipment and materials on that side of the trail. Phase 2 is install a picnic shelter that looks like a train depot. It has architecture resemble a train depot. Obviously did not restore, preserve the train depot from falling down, but the next best thing is to pay homage to the historic train depot, which was, by the way, a fabulous building. I've seen the pictures of it. It's really a shame. But install a picnic shelter that could become an amenity for folks in Prospect that they could utilize for their family events and cookouts and things like that. Oh, it would also architecturally be designed to be consistent with the train depot such that we can track the building. Replace the vault toilet with restrooms, demolish the existing vault toilet, and then finally in phase 3 install a tiny rail car exhibit and pave the parking lot at Crossing. And last but certainly not least is Pamplin. Pamplin is such a gem, and they're so enthusiastic. They love the High Bridge Trail. They love their community. So in phase 1, what we're looking to do is reopen what is an existing railroad crossing, because there used to be a road that went through here. So reopen that for pedestrian use and put a signalized at-grade pedestrian crossing to allow people to walk from the Pamplin trailhead to the historic downtown in Pamplin. In phase 2, we would look to add a caboose exhibit. Lots of rail trails have caboose. I'm kind of surprised High Bridge Trail does not have one. We need a good one. I think it would make it would definitely pay homage to the railroading history that is Pamplin. And so we're looking to add a caboose exhibit that people can explore. In addition to a second train depot themed picnic shelter in Pamplin, a playground at that trailhead, really turn it into a community, or I should say a town park, because Pamplin is a town. We also want to install a hand car exhibit. So these are the things that you preserve 100 feet of track or whatever, and the kids can get on it, and they can pump the hand car and go down to the other end and then come back. And so sort of as an interactive and educational playground experience, do a hand car exhibit. Replace the porta pots there with restroom with town water and sewer, and then install a bicycle course on this larger property that we own on this side of the track, like a bike skills course for folks to be able to, show the kids how to ride a bike, how to ride a bike safely, practice their skills, practice their safety training, and that sort of thing. So that is the phase development plan for High Bridge Trail State Park. As I indicated, we'll have time for questions here at the end of the presentation. I promise we only have a couple more slides to get through. We just want to talk about, all these facilities and all these improvements require people, right? Because your park is not just these things. Your park is also your people. So David's going to talk a little bit about staffing needs to accomplish this plan.
So currently today at the park, we have 5 full-time employees, or FTEs. So Daniel, of course, is our park manager. Jody is office manager. We have 2 chief rangers of law enforcement, and then we have a park ranger maintenance. So those 5 staff, as well as a plethora of wage staff and seasonal staff, who keep the park running, as well as some of you all as volunteers and partners. So as part of this build out of the park, as Josh has just gone through with our phase 1, 2, 3, we also have a proposed build out for staffing at the park as well. So we're going to hit that at a high level. All right, so we're going to focus tonight primarily on those full-time employees. So we have some immediate needs of the park that are highlighted there in the yellow. Chief Park Ranger for visitor experience. So as you all know, this is a very much an interpretive focused park. We discussed that earlier this evening. And we'd like to have a chief ranger whose basically sole job, his or her job, is to work on interpretive events and programming and help with the visitor center and various interpretive opportunities throughout the park. Another park ranger maintenance. This is a very long trail with tons of maintenance issues, especially after storms when all the trees go down for miles and miles and miles. As well as, we have all these little hubs and they each have their own maintenance challenges. And so having a second full-time park ranger for maintenance would be great. And then a public safety and law enforcement position as well to add to our existing. In the phase 1, so this is again, as the phase 1 developments that Josh mentioned are built out, we would also add in an assistant park manager for the park as it grows, a chief park ranger for operations, and a park ranger for resource management. Some of you may know Carrie O'Neill. She is a district resource specialist. She covers High Bridge Trail State Park, as well as all of the other Piedmont state parks. And so one full-time person doing most of the invasive species work, burning and other activities throughout all of those. So we're looking to get someone that's specific to High Bridge, that's on staff here to work on all the resource issues up and down the park. In phase 2, adding an office assistant full-time to help out with Jody at the High Bridge Station, a volunteer coordinator. That volunteer coordinator would also be primarily responsible for all the events that are run at the park throughout the year, and another park ranger maintenance. And then finally, adding in a full-time education specialist with phase 3.
Thank you, David. I'm going to briefly talk about the next steps and how this public comment meeting kind of fits into where we're going from here. So obviously, as I indicated, tonight is your chance to comment, and here in a moment, we encourage you all to do just that and weigh in on what you just heard. Also, I'm going to put these back up on the easels so that I realize I kind of went through those very quickly and was jumping around quite a bit. So if you want to linger after the meeting and study the proposal for a particular area, there'll be an opportunity to do that. But you don't have to just submit comments tonight. You can also submit your comments in writing to the planning resources at dcr.virginia.gov email address. What we're going to do is take all that feedback. We're going to talk about it. We're going to decide whether anything that we're proposing here tonight needs to change or be adjusted. Ultimately, this is going to presentation to the Board of Conservation and Recreation at most likely their winter meeting or early spring. And there will be another opportunity at that time for public comment on the actual draft master plan, which will be available at that time. That's followed by a period of review by the General Assembly. And then finally, we're hoping to get this adopted by the DCR director next spring. So that's sort of where we are in the process. So we really appreciate your attendance. Thank you for coming out. I could talk about High Bridge Trail State Park and what we're proposing like all night, but this is your opportunity to shine. Please feel free to ask your questions. And if you think of a question after you leave here tonight, because if you're like me, most of the time you think of these things when you get home, just go to the website here, the High Bridge Trail State Park Master Planning website, and there's instructions for how you can submit your comments to this email address within the next 30 days. So this will be followed by a 30-day public comment period. At this time, we're going to take questions and answers from the group. Would anybody like to speak? Stand up.
Okay. I think this is really great. You guys are going to spend a lot of money. But I have not heard one word in here that describes Prince Edward County and Cumberland County and the counties around. What is the word tobacco? Okay? I think somewhere in here we need to remind people that the reason this county is here at all is because of tobacco. It was moved on the railroad. It was moved down the river. We're trying to replace the Dunnington Mansion, which was built with tobacco. That's just my thought.
I can probably.
I can answer that.
Yeah.
So thank you for your comment. Actually, at our first meeting that we had this spring, we spent a little bit more time talking about the history of the park than we did tonight. And we did talk about that, tobacco and some of the other crops that were utilized as far as commerce and how we got here. So we focused a little bit more again at the first meeting, but when I went into the interpretive themes tonight, that principle of commerce would cover all of that history.
And I was just going to say, tobacco and the history of tobacco to this region is covered in the draft master plan extensively. It's just, there's so much history there, it's hard to talk about it in 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever we have to talk about. But the tobacco history will be well reflected in the actual plan itself. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Regina Schwab with Friends of High Bridge Trail, and I'm so excited to hear about these various plans that are going on. I had a list of suggestions
I think we would echo that as being the best trail in Virginia. But Regina, thank you. I did want to thank the Friends, because you all are such an important part of the park and just the community and across the whole way. Thank you for your comments. So I'll speak to the signage along 460. We didn't talk about it in the master plan because it's not part of that, because we're planning on doing it beforehand. So that's something that we would love to, because we all here understand how the park runs and what parking lots are which. But it would be good to have, when you're coming from the west, like Pamplin's here, but we also want to highlight, if you want to go to High Bridge, making sure that people understand that. And so there's a couple different ways to look at that. And so, but we'd love to change signage around 460 as well. The other thing I do want to say is some of the community has been helpful, and they think they're helpful by putting in Google pinpoints and stuff. And so there's third-party information on High Bridge that we cannot change. And so there's like a pinpoint near Dry Bridge Road that's drivable directions that takes people on private property. And we cannot, I do want to just say we're unable to change that through Google at this time, but so we would love a little better signage and information out there, so.
Appreciated that comment. Yeah, I echo what you're saying on the signage stuff, but that's definitely something we need to work with VDOT to get, especially as each one of these trailheads, or a certain one of these trailheads, become more destination rather than just simple parking areas. Any other questions? If not, we'll go ahead and close the meeting, but we will be staying after, so I'm going to put the maps back up. If anybody has any questions, feel free to stay after. And thank you.
Hey, you got a babysitter.